the word itself, catalyze, it probably means creating something that didn't exist there before. And so that comes with all the blessings of being able to maybe be the first to do something, or write your own job description or whatever it is. And also sort of the drawbacks, which is nobody's ever done it before. So then they haven't blazed the path in doing exactly what you're doing.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas. We are the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to empowering catalysts to create bold, powerful change in the world.
This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, where we speak with Catalyst executives about ways to successfully lead transformation in large organizations.
And today we're very excited to have time with Alexis Haass. Thanks for being with us, Alexis.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to give you a little bit about your bio, and then of course we want to hear from you. So Alexis is an international senior executive with 20 years of experience dedicated to business and climate issues, focused on developing strategy, innovation, sustainable products and services for business growth and business development. Starting first leading Adidas's brand sustainability program as Director of Business Strategy and Business Development, and most recently as the former Chief Sustainability Officer at Arcadis, a global design, engineering, and infrastructure firm. Also, amazingly, Alexis is the member of the EU Women's Climate Leadership Network at the European Investment Bank. All right, Alexis, I can't wait to hear more about your story. So tell us about your catalytic journey and sharing maybe a few career highlights that you're proud of that help us see your catalytic nature.
Sure. Well, thank you for the lovely intro. And I think I might have been born into a family that was preparing me to be a catalyst. So I come from a medical family. Both parents are doctors. So there was sort of always a expectation or inbuilt, prerequisite that your 9 to 5 makes the world a better place. That being said, therefore, following college, I decided to go into international development. I thought that by working first in DC and then on the ground in actually rural northern Nicaragua, I could find out where the best place would be to actually really leverage change. And when I was in Nicaragua, I noticed that actually the region I was trying to help with health programs and environment programs, they had actually lost their tree cover, dropped their water table, topsoil had gone away, and they were dependent on the World Food Program. I was there because of that. But this was all a decision that actually was made totally legal with consent of everybody there to clear cut the area. And that was one of the large international timber companies that had come through then. And so it just seemed more logical that actually the place you could make more change was in the room with corporate strategy. So I thought I'd go back, get my master's of science and MBA at Michigan. They had a joint degree program where you could look at both the science and the business and start working on sustainability topics. That being said, I don't know if people remember back in 2005, sustainability wasn't cool. It was still a bit crunchy. And so, this was before renewables were cheap. This was before actually the Tesla Roadster even existed. So the concept that sustainability equaled just better in every way, better for business, was a really tough case to make. And so I was interested in actually, a little bit after business school, Adidas asked me to come help them get ready for the London Olympic Games. And that was going to be the first sustainable games. And so therefore, I thought, wow, what a great opportunity to actually make sustainability equal innovation and desirability. And so that was the impetus for me moving to Germany, working at Adidas. Their headquarters is here. And it started a 12-year journey of basically working on sustainable product, innovation, strategy, go-to-market, all of these topics. And I loved doing this work. It was really fun leading the brand program for sustainability. But I think after maybe 2019, I started to really feel that you tapped out in terms of how much you could achieve in decarbonization just through the consumer demand signals alone. You needed to do more in the baseline infrastructure, energy transition, industrial decarbonization. And, if you're not vertically integrated, you don't have power over those decisions. So 2020 came around. I decided to go on maternity leave, have second child. I was very excited to have some time to spend with that child. And then COVID came. So we were all locked inside. That being said, the Build Back Better sort of drumbeat started to pick up. And as I was inside, all the time, I was having more and more conversations with folks who are working on these topics, infrastructure topics around Build Back Better. At the time, Arcadis reached out. They wanted to have their first chief sustainability officer and were interested if I would come along. Now, Arcadis is design and engineering firm, that's infrastructure. So it works on things like energy and nature restoration and industrial and commercial real estate and mobility topics. And this just seemed awesome. That was exactly where I wanted to go. So I came on and started working with Arcadis. We developed sustainable solutions that each of the business areas could bring and evolve proactively to their clients. We worked on topics on how to decarbonize ourselves and then how to teach our clients how to do it for themselves through our learning. We also started figuring out how to communicate about this and how to teach our own people who are very deep subject matter experts also how to communicate in a more broad sense about sustainability. So yeah, maybe to bring us up to the present. So as I was doing this, it was a total treat to, through your day job, get to learn all about these different sectors and energy and buildings and so forth. And therefore, I got very interested in the sort of climate tech solutions that are emerging that are just now really in the money. Things like industrial heat batteries that can supplant a natural gas boiler, or new solutions that you can actually use to change your energy management through AI and software. These things are very new, and I just actually am really interested in thinking, how do we get these to scale, be it through VC, be it through helping them through growth? And that's sort of the focus of my topic right now. So.
Amazing journey, amazing journey. Thank you for sharing. We have so many more questions, but first I would love to start with, what's your definition of being a catalyst, and maybe how has that supported you being in your executive roles?
I love that you guys chose that word. Maybe it is due to where I work or come from, but I've always had this sort of positive connotation with the word catalyst. So it sort of symbolizes to me how you can make impact, and impact at big scale. Like catalyze is just a very active word, active verb. And I think that winds up meaning to me that these are very action-oriented people. Also, I mean, when you catalyze something, you provoke a big reaction, and usually it's a systemic one. And I think a lot of catalysts think systemically. It is something where it's beneficial to be strategic in that sense. I think probably the key point for me in the word catalyst is I was talking about that big picture change. Usually those are the kind of people who are seeking the change point. Where is it that I can go in to provoke the biggest or the needed metamorphosis? That usually means that's the fulcrum, that's the lever. You're always trying to find where can you do it to move the most. And so the good thing about that is that you often think systems, you're moved to action, a bias for action, you're very strategic, but there can be a bad side to that as well, which is maybe you take too big of a bite, and you have to really chew through that with the organization, and it's stressful. or an impatience. It can be really frustrating, especially if you're a catalyst who's motivated by a sense of urgency. For me, it's climate. It can be for other people in healthcare. It can be whatever. But the impatience is not helpful, but it's hard to get rid of. And I think maybe the last thing to just wrap on this is it often means forging your own path. I mean, even the word itself, catalyze, it probably means creating something that didn't exist there before. And so that comes with all the blessings of being able to maybe be the first to do something, or write your own job description or whatever it is. And also sort of the drawbacks, which is nobody's ever done it before. So then they haven't blazed the path in doing exactly what you're doing. And so you deal with the friction.
It's such a beautiful synthesis of why you love the word, what it means to you, and the challenges that you faced as an individual catalyst. And bridging in that, given the executive roles you've played, I'd love to understand what are the biggest challenges you've faced as a catalyst executive, right? And I'm guessing some of the three that you mentioned play into this. I'm very curious.
Let me think. Maybe I could give two different ones, because they sort of symbolize the different kinds of challenges that I think sometimes people have. One was from Adidas. Back then, it was about like not making progress on a strategic initiative, and that I think a lot of people struggle with that. How you're in this stuck place. So how do you get out of it? For us at Adidas at the time, it was an adoption of 100% recycled polyester. So that is by far the biggest material that Adidas uses in everything. It's often the most used sports material there is. And at the time, it was also at quite a price premium. And there was a great deal of difficulty in even trying to engineer maybe some fabrics to have the same quality or the same, look and feel as what it would be. So it was really a tough thing. You couldn't just easily make a swap in, swap out kind of argument. You had to sort of rethink products, rethink supply chains. And we were making progress, sort of bit by bit. There were some really great allies across the company, everybody really pulling hard on this. I think the thing that really changed it, or what helped overcome that just very incremental progress to make a full commitment to 100% and then just really deliver against it, first was having good allies and good relations. So back then, our president of brands, Eric Liedtke, was a dedicated surfer. He was very motivated personally by the topic. I remember actually when right as he was coming onto the board to be president of brands, he had previously been head of the Adidas brand, and before that, head of marketing overall. And I'd sort of worked with him a bit through the years. And I had kind of been in his ear all the time saying, this is really important. We really have to do this. And I remember writing him an email the night that he was announced. I said, congratulations, Eric. Look forward to seeing what you do. And he wrote me one line back, and it was, hold on to your hat. And that was just like, yay. Okay, we got somebody who really believes in it in a place that they can really give you some, some wins to actually move it along. Because everybody knew this was key to how Eric saw the brand. And then the second thing is, through that, Adidas wound up creating this great symbol and this ability to tell the vision and the story of why are we doing this really big change, especially when it's difficult and maybe it's more expensive and that was by creating some pinnacle product. It was a collaboration with Partly for the Oceans, but it was a ocean plastic shoe. That meant taking plastic off the beaches in remote islands in the Pacific, and then actually using that and fishnets and everything to create this new shoe that was then they went and held up.
I remember it was so cool too, just mind blowing.
And the thing was, recycled polyester is hard to get people excited about. You know, you can tell bottles, but everybody's like, bottles, it's trash. But then if you're cleaning up beaches in the Pacific, all of a sudden it feels like a mission. And I think that's really important when you're working on things, is people need to feel the mission of what it is, why it's important, how they get to play a part in it. And that was really, again, a catalyzing thing that helped pull that along. So those were the two things that moved that example. I could give one other example if it's helpful from Arcadis.
Also about not making progress, or is it a different challenge?
No, it's a different challenge.
Okay.
I think you guys had written me before about, is it steering transformation without disruption to the business?
Right.
The challenge that sometimes people have. I appreciate, by the way, you seating me with a couple of ideas. That helps.
Absolutely. Want to set you up for success.
This one was, it involved our key account program. So Arcadis, like I say, is a design and engineering company. We work with clients from 50% private, 50% public, all across the globe. And then of these really major, large clients, we had a key account program to actually really catalyze more action with those really large clients. And when I first came on with the CEO, Peter Ostavir, was also very personally committed to this topic. And it was centered it in their strategy. That was why they wanted a chief sustainability officer to help figure it out. And he and I put together an investor day during the first year there. And he just right up on stage said, and we talked about it, I didn't know he was going to say it on the camera, but he said, well, we expect to only work with clients who have committed to the goals of Paris. I was like, great, okay, we're now doing that, which was amazing.
Wow.
Which also meant that there were people who hadn't yet figured out plans, who or either hadn't verbally said they were going to commit to the goals of Paris, or hadn't figured out plans on how to do so. And so we had to figure out, okay, how are you going to measure that statement? And then also, how are you going to make it a positive thing for the business? This is not to kick anybody out. It is not actually, it is an opportunity to say our mission was to help people figure out how to get there and how to get there faster. Because we kind of knew through our client conversations that was already the goal for many. And so in figuring out that program, one of the things that we had to do was develop a system to figure out what it meant to move up the ladder in terms of commitment and maturity and how to do this. So it was developing an entire methodology around this. And I learned some really valuable lessons. One is that you should lead with how this is going to be helpful to the business. This is helpful to the business. Of course, sometimes, I guess, as a catalyst, I've heard this from others I've spoken to, you can get so in love with the challenge or the problem, you go straight into the detail, as opposed to first making it clear that something that might be, a given to you is not necessarily on the page for other people. And so, for example, developing this system, a lot of people were worrying about what's this stage versus that stage, and why is it important for this one to go up to that one, as opposed to saying, wow, do you know, having this, we're going to have more information than we ever had about our clients' goals, about their needs, about where we could derive better insights on where they might be getting stuck. We could start also seeing who we could pair up to, who are on similar challenges, so that they could learn from each other. And this was something that we had done ad hoc before, but then we could actually start to do it systematically. But somebody taught me, and I appreciated that, was that I had not led in the beginning with, this is useful to the business. This is not only useful, this is a whole bunch of new business coming our way. And actually wound up working with the leader of the program at the time, and also some of the sector leaders who were telling us, hey, we just went to go talk to our clients about this. Some were very nervous about going to talk to clients about this. And they just found that a whole bunch of business came back, or even just if it wasn't business, it was business development, because now people wanted to talk at a level or on a more broad time horizon than they ever had before. So I guess probably one of the things that, if I had to give some advice to catalysts, it would definitely be make sure not only you're speaking the language, but you're also being able to think through their eyes first of what you need to see on the page first. What's your problem? Solve that one first. And then, of course, pack in all the stuff behind, but don't make that the lead. Don't make that the headline.
What you've just articulated almost to every single data point is the insights that it takes to be a successful catalyst executive. And I love your intentionality and how you've combined the differences in your experience that led you up to that, to have this really well-formed sort of process or approach to bringing people along. When we think about most catalysts, and you were saying this earlier, it's like we can be too impatient. We can be too excited about the impact that we're going to have. You know, when I was talking with you earlier about when we started the innovation program at Vodafone, we didn't have this word catalyst. So we were looking for like the positive troublemakers or the positive disruptors. But we often get given the half of that moniker as the troublemaker or the disruptor, because like if you're not aware that your process is different and all of the things that you have over years probably distilled down, we actually can cause noise in the system and sort of repel people away. I would argue, and particularly on the point of sustainability, we need more catalytic leaders sitting at the level that you were in these massive organizations to drive change. But whether it's a sustainability catalyst or not, I'm wondering if you have advice for people to how to leverage their catalyticness, or maybe even adjust their catalyticness to make it to have a C-suite role sitting at the table.
That's a really good question. I would say a couple of things. Well, first, you know, just reiterating in the last story, you must be able to speak the language of where you're at. And that doesn't mean you need to be, so for example, I was not an expert in infrastructure when I came into Arcadis, and that was not actually the language I needed to speak. The language I needed to speak, and actually some of the value that I brought, was I came from client side. So I needed to think client side and why this would be beneficial to clients. So you have to use that language first, and you also need to think of your partners there who may be excited about this change, may not, or may have more or less information about this, what needs to be done. And you also need to, often my team would tell me, you need to take what's in your head and say it out loud. You know, you need to actually articulate a lot of this. And make sure that you're leading, the headline that you're leading with is how helpful this will be for you. How really I'm doing this just to make sure, because you are. I mean, it's not lying to say that. That is actually, I want sustainable solutions that are just better, period. Now, I'm not going to advocate for one that hugs trees and kisses bunnies, but doesn't do anything for business.
Yeah.
That would be maybe the first one. Second one is probably, especially as you're moving through an organization, you really need to be very proactive about getting mentors. And some of those mentors will turn into advocates. Sometimes you will just separately wind up with, you know, some advocates or allies along the way. But you need those mentors because you need to do a lot of constant introspection. Because if you actually want to produce a result, you need to figure out what you did wrong if you didn't produce it yet. And then that also kind of means you need to be willing to fall on your face and have something embarrassing happen, and then get up, go ask somebody what you did wrong, and then get back on the horse and go try and just pack that in to use for growth. So you can't be afraid of failure, and you need to be ready for a lot of growth. It would be good to incorporate some introspection. I think also this may be due to my preference or bias. I really think catalysts need to be good at articulating a vision, at selling the excitement of the big idea, being able to tell stories, especially once you are able to tell that big idea. For example, for engineers in Arcadis, how basically coming to work every day, you are going to be a hero in your day job, because everything we build now will last 30 plus years. So you're basically building 2050 now.
So
you know?
cool.
So
So
you have to
cool.
be able to tell a story of that. And then you need to also be able to say, how is that relating to exactly the thing you're doing now, and the thing you're going to do in 1 month, and the thing you're going to do in 3 months, and actually help people see where every one of them fits in to it. And depending on your audience, get more granular than you thought, or get less granular. You need to really be able to recalibrate on the fly. Last, I just wind up with, because this is important, you'll often be the noise, the troublemaker, the somebody out there. It's really much better if what you're doing, you make other people win, because it's uncomfortable. The change is uncomfortable. And you're so lucky to have people along the way who want to help, some who don't want to help, but they did it anyway. And then really holding up people as those people did something they didn't need to do, and they need to be recognized for that. So take a step back when you can, and often try and make other people win, I would say.
Yeah. I have to say, you're like an ad for our class. So like all of the things is like, yes, that's week 1, that's week 2, that's week 4, amazing. I want to go back to the beginning, because I'm just going to recap a little bit, like where you started off with like having the hardcore business skills combined with empathy. That's not a word that you use, but you were like sensing like what is in it for other people and how do you bring them along. I think, helping catalysts understand the pillar, the foundation of having the business knowledge is really important. Right. And that was something that I really took for granted until I started on my MBA. Was like, how was I going to make change without some of that knowledge? Excuse me. You ended on a thing that we do talk about, which is, helping make other people win. And you talked about mentors. There's this interesting fine line. Tracy, just one quick question. There's this interesting fine line, because also if people don't know that you were at the table driving some of that change, you won't get the license to operate. And that any kind of, bragging or self-promotion often feels really uncomfortable for catalysts, because we're so interested in just getting it done and making everyone else a hero. Do you have a double click on the advice for how to navigate that?
Maybe, because I don't know if I figured it out right. But I feel like it's more of a sliding scale, and especially the higher you get, the more you need to almost disappear. And early on, maybe nobody knows you exist. So you do need to sort of jump up and down and be like, I'm saying that we need to do this. So it's a little bit of I'm saying, but then later you get on, especially the further you go, the more it behooves you for your own team, put them out there, because then they can be the leaders that are already, get recognized in the company, and they can carry so many more things on so much farther than you could. Or, people who may not have been particularly excited or motivated about it, by actually you taking yourself more out of it, then it actually can be more appetizing to people, because especially if it is something you can relate to that they have said, so it's their idea. That being said, sometimes you get that balance right, and then sometimes you get that balance wrong. So in either direction, either nobody noticed that you did it, or you took too much about me, and everybody was like, well, you didn't think enough about the business. I was like, oh. So I think that thing I was saying before about mentors and needing people who love you, who trust you, who have seen you through the time, who believe in you. And these people I had over the years, I just simply walked on up to somebody who is, SVP of this business unit, or I knew that they led this other thing, and I just liked how they led. And so then I just asked them to be my mentor. at times. And that helps because then you get a lot of really good insights and feedback, but you got to be ready to swallow it because it means, yeah, we're human. We don't do everything right all the time.
Yeah. Getting mentors for feedback means you're going to get a lot of feedback.
Feedback, yeah.
Which requires receiving and acting on hearing very hard things sometimes. I love how you say that with just a very gentle smile. Alexis, it's just so true.
The reason I think a lot of people do this work is not, I guess if you wanted to make a lot of money, you'd probably have gone into investment banking.
Right.
You don't do it for that. If you wanted to have a lot of fame, you might have gone into some other field as well. So usually you're doing it because there's something that's just, it's like an itch, it's a drive. If you feel like the world's going to come to an end, if you don't, literally for me, I kind of feel like it might, if you don't actually solve some of these problems. And not that you think you can solve them alone, but it's like, if you're not doing it, then you're not working on something that's worthwhile, that matters. We really have a window of 5 or 10 years to actually put ourselves on the right track. And I want to be able to look my kids in the eye and say, I tried, I did my best. And just when you do that, the good news is oftentimes you can catalyze a lot of other people.
Yeah.
They see that and they've never seen someone who just totally did it not the conventional way, not the normal way. And so it's like, why are there so many companies founded in Silicon Valley? Just because there's a lot of people founding companies. You see someone else doing it. So, you need to be a catalyst, if only for the reason that somebody else sees you do it. As a chief sustainability officer, I walked into the grocery store and I didn't always buy recycled toilet paper. You know what? The kid was screaming. I had to go get out of there quickly. And I would tell this story all the time to folks because I would say, it's hard, to make all the right decisions. But the most important thing is when you talk about one of the ones that maybe you did and you tried to do, or the ones that you're thinking of, then actually what matters more is that other people see it and think, oh, that's normal.
Yeah.
And then they start to do it too.
I love that. Yeah. When I look back on my own career in, kind of directing research and innovation in technology, it was really when I let go of ego and this made my job easier and I got more credit for it, oddly, is when I started making everyone responsible for understanding the customer and I wasn't the conduit. It was actually far more impactful long term. And the fact that I did the work to bring people together and help them have the insights rather than read a report and email that they weren't going to read, it was so much better. But it really took a long time for me in the early days of career to understand that continuum you're speaking to, right? And I love that idea that the more senior you get, the more you have to let go of that. And that's the way to empower. It's so beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you.
One thing that I don't know if it's different now because I'm dating myself, but I was back in business school in like 2004 and 5. So maybe this is totally normal now, but we weren't having explicit conversations at the time about the shift between being a manager and being a leader. And what happens then? You had plenty of examples of what leadership looked like. You had plenty of examples of what good management looked like, but nobody talked about specifically the change point when you go from being one to another, or when you need to inhabit each one and when, and how you do that, like code switching. And I think, I had to learn through trial and error how to figure that out, because I didn't have as many resources there that had already said, this is what it's going to look like when, this is how you do it, this is how you go. And I think that would be something particularly catalysts should be, especially if they're young, already thinking about, because that change is going from time when you're actually trying to manage to an objective versus what good leadership looks like, inspiring, still somehow manages to ensure accountability, but at the same time, it lets that level of positivity and optimism just infuse all the people you need to, so that actually it happens kind of almost just without you.
Boom, says Alexis. Catalyst, are you about the ideas or are you about the leadership? Alexis is leading us to the leadership, and I love it. It's such a beautiful synthesis. All right, as we wrap up today, Alexis, our favorite question is the fun one. We'd love to hear about your favorite catalyst, past or present, who inspires you and why they stand out for you.
Is it too trite for me to say Obama?
No,
Wow.
no. Heck
No,
no.
it's actually true. And there's several more I can think of in different sectors where they literally, Obama is such a iconic one, where the positivity that and optimism that we can, of course we will, we're going to do this. And it was also the calm that came along with that positivity. And just kind of being an amazing role model that just sort of more through actions, through presence, was sort of able to connote what we were trying to do. I have seen that much more upfront and personal in my own life, in personal life for people who have done it, professional life, like Eric, who was the president of brands. I saw what it would do to animate the entire company around a vision. He was famous for it, and the ability to just comfortably, casually talk with people. And boy, he made some big failures, big mistakes, but that was okay, and he showed that it was okay. That was really catalytic. I mean, maybe if I hadn't said Obama, I would have said my mother, which is a little silly. But in terms of emotional intelligence, I literally know nobody better. I mean, she's an amazing clinician and does amazing work, like top leading work in the US. But at the same time, the level of introspection, listening, that she has and can show to other people, and the sort of just not Pollyanna, but realistic optimism and commitment and grit to just get it done. I hope I wind up being more like her. So
I love that. I love ending on that beautiful note. The Catalyst family is where you started, and then we wrap it there. Alexis, this has been a joy. It's such a fun way for us to get to spend an hour. Thank you.
It's lovely to be here.
So glad. And thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn about how to create bold, powerful change in the world, be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, or go to our website at catalystconstellations.com.
And if you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, please take 10 seconds to rate it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Of course, if you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way. Thanks for listening.